I'd like to welcome everyone to our Board of Health meeting on Monday, May 8th, 2023. It is 6:05. Sorry, I had computer problems. I couldn't hear anyone. So we will call this meeting to order now at 6:05 p.m. And our first agenda item is open forum. Do we have anybody or anything for open forum?
No, we do not at this time. No hands are raised. Any attendees? No.
All right, then seeing nothing there, we can go ahead and move to our thank you.
All right, great. So I just wanted to read something quickly if I could. We just wanted to thank Zach Cataldo. He's been a Board of Health member here in the Westford Health Department as a Board of Health member since 1999.
Wow.
He which is 22 years. So he attended more than 240 Board of Health meetings. He was the chair of the Board of Health for 10 plus years. He sat on the Board of Health through many public health threats such as H1N1, avian flu, COVID-19 pandemic, the perchlorate release, and numerous regulation changes and updates, just to name a few. He also participated in endless meeting discussions on environmental topics such as well and septic installations, food establishment requests, the building of the asphalt plant, grant reviews, variance requests, and he provided many signatures on public health support letters. He did also sit on the Healthy Westford Committee, the Healthy Kids Coalition, and he was part of the Sustainable Westford group that helped bring a farmer's market to Westford. He was always passionate and eager to help and serve the Westford residents and support the health department staff. We want to thank him very much for his years of service and support of our health department and our residents. It's truly been a privilege to work with him for all of these years, and I wish him all the very best as he goes on to do new things. And we want to thank Zach very much.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. That is an incredible record and amazing amount of service to the community. Thank you so much, Zach.
It was a privilege to serve with Zach all those years. Absolutely.
It absolutely was.
Okay.
I agree. Just unmuted, sorry.
Oh, she does not remain silent. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Zach. I guess now we can move on to our welcome to Megan Hughes, who is our new Board of Health member.
Yeah, we just wanted to take a minute to thank Megan for joining us here at the Board of Health and with the Health Department. We're very excited to have you part of the team, and if there's anything we can do to help you, we really appreciate your public service. So thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Megan. It's nice to have you on
Thank
board
you.
with us.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. I guess we can go ahead then and we'll get a little ahead here and move on to our approval of minutes. We have the March 13th meeting minutes and the April 10th. So
There's a little bit of a snag. When we uploaded the packet, it attached, even though March is complete, attached April twice. So March,
I thought so.
It's not April. Okay.
I thought that was me.
I did too. I was like, how did I miss that? Okay, great.
so
Well, then
we
we'll go to
apologize.
the April meeting minutes. And since
Yeah,
I
so
wasn't
today
there,
will
I'll
be April only.
okay. I wasn't there, so I will not comment, but did anybody else have comments about those?
The only comment that I had was the absent line.
Me
Did
too.
not say
did
who was
list it.
absent.
Yeah.
So
And
I
I
don't think Zach was there either. Everything else looks fine.
I did have a comment. I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to get into the minutes.
I can bring them up to Joanne if you need to.
Am I having audio problems too now?
I'm hearing you.
Oh, okay. Shoot, this came up too fast. I couldn't find it. One little typo.
There was one that was underlined in red that
In in the minutes?
Yeah.
Let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow.
Oh. It had something to do with
Other.
mental health training. Because it said mental training instead of mental health training.
Okay.
I'm trying to find it.
I think if you go up to the page before,
I think it might be under new business. The department held
Oh, yeah.
Stop the Bleed, Hands on CPR, and youth mental first aid training.
Mental first aid training, isn't it? Use mental health first aid? It's not youth mental first aid.
All right, we'll have them fix it, no problem.
Is it actually mental health first aid or is it just youth mental or youth first aid?
Use mental health first
mental
aid.
health. first.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it was on, yeah, under National Public Health Week. Okay, that was it.
Okay, so with the amendment to the absentee line and that mental health first aid. Any other comments?
Mm-mm.
Right, then, let's see. Joe, we have,
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
okay, Sue made some motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Joanne seconds.
No, that was
No, Michelle
no.
second.
Oh, Michelle, sorry. Sue, in favor
Yeah, aye.
or, okay, Michelle,
Aye.
Joanne,
Aye.
I will abstain, and Megan, I don't know.
Yeah, abstain.
Okay, so that passes with a majority of 3.
For clarity, you don't have to abstain if you weren't there. You can still vote on.
Oh,
You
I
can
can still
vote on
vote
the
on.
context of what's in the minutes.
Okay, well then I will vote to approve of them because I read them and they updated me. So, okay, I then from my part, Megan.
It's up to Megan because
Yeah.
she wasn't even on the board, but you don't have to, Stephanie.
Okay, I mean, I'll just still
Okay.
abstain since I didn't read them with an editing eye since, yeah, anyways.
Okay, so then it passes with Stephanie, Sue, Joanne, Michelle in favor and Megan abstaining. Thank you. Okay, so next week or next month, we will catch up on March and have May. So we're a little early ahead. Do we know if our people are here for the perchlorate discussion already? We have quite a few participants.
Yep, so Andrea is here. Let me just see if she's available here.
Hello,
Hi, Andrea, welcome.
thank you.
And so you were going to update us on the information about what's going on with the perchlorate situation?
Sorry, it reconnected me as a panelist, so there was a little pause there, so.
Oh, okay. Sorry about
I
that.
just
Welcome.
joined, yeah, let me turn my video on, let me a second. Okay. All right, cool. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Yes, thank you for welcoming me to this meeting. I'm happy to be here and provide an update on the perchlorate release that happened several decades ago now. I do have some slides. I don't know if I would be able to share them. Okay, so I'll just request a share.
All right, just bear with me 1 second.
Saying on my end, the host disabled participant screen sharing.
How is that, Andrea? Anything?
Oh, that's better. Yep. Okay, great. So it should be popping up shortly. Can you see the slides?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. So I will go into slideshow mode. Actually, I'm gonna leave it like this. You guys can see it, okay, right?
Yeah.
All right, great. So just as an overview of what happened, I don't know if any of you or all of you know all the details behind it, but essentially a release of perchlorate was discovered at the site back in 2004 as a result of the use of ammonium perchlorate containing bedrock blaster in support of the construction of the DPW garage at the top of Snake Meadow Hill. And because it was released at the top of a hill that had essentially, shallow bedrock underneath it, the perchlorate got infiltrated into the ground and made its way into the bedrock fractures underneath the hill, and then also migrated overland with surface water flow down the surface of the hill. So there were two different migration pathways. One that went overland and flowed eastward towards the valley aquifer. And then another that kind of made its way deeper underground in through those bedrock fractures and kind of migrated with the direction of the bedrock fractures and groundwater flow. So it impacted several properties, around Snake Meadow Hill and down gradient, both to the north and to the east. And what you're seeing here on my screen is essentially what is defined as what we call the disposal site boundary. The release of perchlorate did trigger release notifications under the Massachusetts environmental set of regulations called the MCP, or the Massachusetts Contingency Plan. And that set off a whole slew of reporting requirements that I'm going to go over in a minute. But essentially, what we define as a site under the MCP is anywhere that perchlorate has come to be released or found as a direct result of what happened during the construction of the DPW garage. So everywhere you're seeing color on my screen inside of this disposal site boundary we either know that it has been impacted by perchlorate, or where we've modeled concentrations to assume that it has been impacted by perchlorate, just based on data that we have around it. So that's what the site is. So as I mentioned, the Snake Meadow Hill, the highway garage is shown here in this outline in the peach colored area. And then from there, it flowed overland downwards and into this purple colored area called the Valley Aquifer. That's a shallow aquifer that fed into the Cody Well. It's no longer used for drinking water, but the Cody Well was in service at the time. And that's actually how the release was first discovered, was through the testing and detection of perchlorate in that well. So Woodard and Curran came on board in about 2011 to assist the town of Westford with MCP compliance and additional site delineation. And before that, there was another consultant. But we've been working on the site for a while now. And what we were able to do is through pretty comprehensive testing over several quarters or months, we were able to demonstrate that what you're seeing in purple in this valley aquifer the concentrations have significantly been reduced. And we were able to demonstrate that there's no significant risk or residual perchlorate levels that pose a risk in that area. And so we were able to carve that section out of the site, if you will. And that section's now considered closed under the MCP. And so the active monitoring that we're still doing and assisting the town of Westford with is in this peach colored area. And that's what we refer to as the Snake Meadow Hill portion of the site. And there are still residents or monitoring locations within this peach colored portion of the site that do have perchlorate concentrations that, if people were exposed to them, might cause a significant risk. Luckily, there are no known exposures that we know of. They've all been mitigated either through the connection of town public water to residences or facilities using drinking water, or through the installation of treatment systems at private residents that have not been connected to town water. So I will pause here and see if anyone has any questions on the site in general.
So, the area that was the non-bedrock has effectively been cleared at this point?
Yes, there's a different flow mechanism this area here is all shallow overburden and not really bedrock. So with the overland flow, it kind of went into this low-lying area, and the perchlorate that made its way there has flushed its way out to the point where we're still seeing detections, but they're far lower than what they were initially, and they don't pose a condition of significant risk for folks who may drink that water.
Okay.
So it has reached what we call as the performance standards under the Massachusetts contingency plan to achieve closure.
And would it be anticipated that at some point in time in the peach colored section, it
Yes,
will no longer be a risk?
that's the hope. That's the hope. So I do have a timeline just to give you a sense from where we started to where we are. I kind of touched upon a couple of these things, but just real quick, in 2007, that's when the state of Massachusetts was officially notified of the release that took place. And then since that time, various phases of investigation have been conducted out there by either Woodard and Curran or previous consultants. And the Massachusetts work progresses from phase 1 to phase 5. We are in phase 5 right now, so it's very late stage, status to be in the MCP, which is good. And so that's this last box over here on the right. So 2019 through the present is where we're at now. And
Andrea,
from-
can I just ask you, when
Oh,
you
sure.
say significant risk, what are you talking about?
That's a good question. So one of the performance standards in the MCP, in order to achieve closure, is that you must demonstrate that there is what's called a condition of no significant risk. And what that essentially means is that were exposures to take place to site-related contaminants, it would not pose a risk above an acceptable level set by DEP. And they do rate things for cancerous chemicals and non-cancerous chemicals. And so we come up with cancer and non-cancer risks. And they're compared to a target. So if they're below the target, then they've achieved no significant risk.
Thank you.
Does that help? Okay. So from here, phase 5, we essentially have 3 pathways that we can pursue, with the gold standard being the permanent solution that I mentioned a couple of times. And that's what the Valley Aquifer has right now. And that's our ultimate goal, is to move the entire site and the Snake Meadow Hill portion to a permanent solution. But there are various steps and milestones that we have to achieve in order to get there. And so while that's the gold standard, there are 2 other pathways that we can move the site towards that would still be considered significant regulatory milestones under the MCP. And one of those is called a temporary solution, and the other one is called a remedy operation status. So with those 2, the site's not considered closed permanently. It is, in DEP's eyes, almost there. So we've come a long way. We still have a few steps to go, and I'll go over those in a minute. But overall, the site is looking much better than it did in 2007.
Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
How come it's taken so long?
Well, that's a very good question, but the issue out here is largely the presence of bedrock fractures. And the bedrock fractures are so unpredictable. Even with modeling, there's just, on top of a massive hill, there's just no way to know exactly where the perchlorate is and travels to. And then also it tends to get stuck inside the rock sometimes. And then with, additional precipitation or over time, it will flush its way through. But there's really no great way to speed up or enhance, degradation of this product. So that's really that's the biggest issue out here, is the presence of those bedrock fractures.
Thank you.
So this is just another graphic that shows the milestones. I'm going to skip through that. But right now, what we're doing for the town is shown on this slide. So essentially what we do to keep the town in compliance with the MCP is we help with the perchlorate sampling. the town of Westford, the water department actually conducts the sampling, and then they provide the data to us, and we tabulate the data. We do a data analysis, and try to keep an eye on trends, either if the concentrations are going up or if they're going down. And then we'll report back the results to, Eric's office and Kristen's office. So that's done fairly regularly. Depending on the location, it might be conducted monthly or quarterly or semi-annually, depending on the concentrations that are there, and the use of the property. We also have system inspections. So the point of entry treatment systems that 3 of the residences have to treat their water before they drink it have to be inspected quarterly. So we assist with that. And there's usually never any problems with those. Those treatment systems are pretty, they run on their own and they last a fairly long time. So there's usually very few issues associated with those treatment systems. We also help with system O&M if anything were to happen. We do it on an as-needed basis. Sometimes the media that absorbs the perchlorate gets full and needs to be replaced. So that's one of the reasons we take a look at the data when it's collected, and we'll let the town know whenever that happens, and we assist them with support for the replacement as needed. And then as a requirement under the MCP, we do need to submit a report every 6 months that describes the activities that were conducted at the site the previous 6 months. So we do that semi-annually. And those reports are usually submitted in July and January of each year. And that will contain the data that were collected over that 6-month period, a description of any modifications to systems or sampling regimes, or anything out of the norm that happened during that time period. And then lastly, we just recently helped with a tier classification extension, something that has to happen every 2 years, just to let the state know that it's still a site and we're still working on moving it towards permanent solution. So these are the regular routine things that we help the town with. We also help with, other types of requests that might come in from Eric or Kristen's office or you folks, the Board of Health. And one thing we're actually going to be doing this year is to do a pilot study, and I'll move on to my next slide here, of the highway system, the highway garage system. So there is a treatment system at that building at the top of the garage. It has 2 recovery wells. It kind of acts as a pump and treat system. So it will pump water out of the ground. It will run it through a filter, and then it will discharge the clean water back to the ground surface. And the objective of that is to try and to remove as much of the perchlorate that might be left at the highway garage property, to remove mass so that it doesn't continue to migrate down gradient. So we've been running this system since 2010. And we're at the point now where we want to try and see what's going to happen if we turn that off and monitor the down gradient residents and other properties to see if we see an increase in perchlorate concentrations. Because ultimately, in order to achieve permanent solution, that's going to be something we need to demonstrate, is that system's no longer required. So we've been waiting to get, for the sites, the release to kind of stabilize and get to the point where we don't think the concentrations or much of the mass is left. And we think we might be close to that. So that's one thing we're working with Eric and Kristen on, is trying to design this pilot test for the next year. Yes. You have a question, Sue?
Yeah, so you were talking about all this monitoring. Has there been any health monitoring? Are we aware if anybody's gotten sick from these levels? I don't see any of that data, and I just didn't know whether that was being tracked at all.
No, we don't do health monitoring. That's not really a component that's required under the MCP, or something that an LSP, a licensed site professional, would help with. That's the services we generally provide. I don't know what type of testing would be done. Certainly if someone's sick or having symptoms of something, then, that might be something their doctor could evaluate. But
I'm just curious, when you talked about the risks, so what kind of cancers are people getting from this? What are those kind of risks that you talk about?
Well, that's a loaded question. So perchlorate is, I don't think it's a carcinogen, but we haven't seen any we haven't been doing any tracking of health out here. And in mostly the exposures were mitigated pretty quickly. As soon as the release was discovered, they really did connect the residents to town water where they could. Bottled water was provided to many residents for a long time until they were able to be connected or get the treatment systems in. You know, so over time, I don't think that there were long-term effects from this, but I certainly, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know about that.
Thyroid risks, I think, are the biggest perchlorate health risks.
Which are the risks, Stephanie?
Thyroid,
Oh, thyroid, okay.
thyroid function.
I just didn't know if that was reported at all by anybody.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know.
that's
Yeah.
not, it might,
No.
I don't know if the Board of Health has had any, you know, complaints or, any of the residents have gone in with any health issues. It's not something that has been reported to Woodard and Curran.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so, and we're also looking at other performance standards for closure, including a demonstration that the plume has stabilized and is not migrating beyond the limits that we already know. And then we already talked about demonstrating.
Sorry,
Yep.
just in question with that, do you test then outside of the?
Yeah,
original
so
area?
back to this disposal site boundary,
Mhm.
this dashed line was defined back in 2012 using all the data that we had, and we did have data from outside a lot of this boundary. And these residents, particularly along Groton Road over here to the west, and some of the ones even on Coundry Hill Lane, have perchlorate concentrations that are below what we think is regional background. So they were not included in the disposal site boundary. This boundary is what we think the impacts are directly from the site. So there may be perchlorate, and there is perchlorate pretty much everywhere, not just in Westford, but just, you know, let's just say the state of Massachusetts. And one of the things that we did back in 2012 was we did a very comprehensive review of publicly available water data across the state. And we did a statistical analysis to come up with some numbers that we feel would be representative of true background conditions or things that, you know, fireworks, for example, are another source of perchlorate. So fireworks go in the air and they you know, get deposed and they travel through precipitation and wind. So there are regional levels of perchlorate present, but that doesn't mean they pose a risk, and that doesn't mean that they're from the site. So this boundary right here is what we feel is site related, if you will.
But if you're not testing beyond that area, how do you know that it isn't spreading?
Well, we have locations that we do regularly monitor. Let me just pull up. I have a bigger plan that I can pull over. Is that easier to see? Is
Yeah,
that
thank you.
sure? So we do have some key indicator properties, particularly along the northern portion of the site on Groton Road, where they've historically had the highest concentrations, and we're seeing stabilization at these locations. And some of them are going down a bit. Some of them are staying pretty consistent. And then we also do monitor over this cluster of residents over here monthly or quarterly. These are the 3 homes that have the treatment systems. And then we do also monitor some of the residents over along the eastern portion of Groton Road. So, you know, we do have indicator locations that we monitor regularly to see if there's any changes in trends, and we're not
So the
seeing.
assumption being that if they were going up, then you would expand the area that you're checking?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's see. So lastly, we just have to do what's called the feasibility of achieving background. That's I don't need to go in that, and that's something that is just kind of a paper exercise, but it's just something we have to do. But these are the 3 biggest things that we're going to be looking at doing over the next year or 2 to see if we can position the site for permanent closure. So I will stop there and take additional questions. from you guys, or I can go into more detail on some things.
Does anyone have questions for her? Ray?
Yes, Andrea, thank you so much. I appreciate that. One of your last slides talks about potential deed restrictions and just.
Oh, yes. Yep. So right now, there are several properties that had an irrigation well, were connected to town water, but still have the well in use for irrigation. And under the current current version of the MCP, it does state that if someone were to keep the well in place, if the perchlorate were to pose a significant risk, we would need to put a deed restriction on their wells, on their property. Right now, I don't think we have, there may be a few of them, yeah, like on Groton Road. So if they wanted to keep their well for use in irrigation and the concentration of perchlorate was greater than 2, then they're likely looking at some kind of deed restriction before we close the site out. However, the MCP is going under significant modification. It was supposed to come out in 2019 and they keep changing the date. So I don't know when that's going to be coming out. And I don't know if there's going to be change around this particular topic. But it could potentially change. So that's why we put potential here, because we're not sure exactly yet. But there is a chance that if there are locations that want to continue to use their well for irrigation, that they may need a deed restriction if we wanted to close the site out.
Okay, so if their existing irrigation wells are out there in this mapped area, that's the part that's, now when we talk about close, can they use their irrigation well?
Yes, they can, as long as they don't use it for potable use. And that's why we would need a deed restriction, is to lock in that use.
Okay. All right, and any resident that would like to put in an irrigation well in the closed area, are they able to?
In the closed area, they are, yes.
But not in the active area?
Not, right, no.
Okay,
Well, if they wanted to use the irrigation well and they were connected to town water, that would be allowable, but they might be opening themselves up for the need for a deed restriction down the line.
okay.
Ray, are these areas also restricted from ever then having a drinking water well?
Yeah, so, my understanding is just about everyone's been hooked up to town water except for the folks
Those
that
three.
are up. Yeah, that are up closer. They were, because it's an active area, they wouldn't be allowed to put in a well.
But if
And
it's
they're-
closed, are they allowed to?
If it's closed, they're allowed to put an irrigation well, but not a portable drinking water well.
Okay, and that's just something that would come back, if somebody came to the department saying we want to put in a well, you would say, well, you're in this area, that's not.
Right,
That's
and I think a deed, for us, we use deed restrictions all the time for different things. It'd certainly be my recommendation that we encourage a deed restriction. I think it's important that people know when they purchase the home, the raw water coming in has such and such in it, or it has this level in it. One last question, Andrea, do the folks that have been through this process that have either a portable drinking water well or irrigation well, have they been abandoned, if you will, properly, do you know?
No, to our knowledge, none of these have been properly decommissioned.
Okay,
That's also an alternative. If there is an existing well that hasn't been decommissioned and they no longer wish to use it, if it's properly decommissioned, then a deed restriction would not be needed.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Question?
Yes.
Andrea, I thought you said towards the end, you had kind of a time frame.
Yes.
So can you go over that again based on, how things are progressing? How much longer you think this will be? I mean,
Yeah,
I know there's
it's a
no
good
crystal ball, but
it's a good question, and that's, so we, that's our ultimate goal. And, relative to where the site was, we're closer than obviously we've ever been, but it's really getting to the point where we can finally see the home stretch, which is great. Once we do this pilot test that I described, that's really going to be what we need to be the nail in the coffin, so to speak. And if we're able to demonstrate that treatment at that highway garage is no longer needed to contain the plume, if you will, then we'll be able to do the other three, the other two bullets, I think, fairly easily. So once we're able to demonstrate, that the plume is not migrating any beyond what we already know, and that the concentrations aren't going to be greatly impacted by the lack of treatment at the highway garage, then we'll be able to, get the site closed pretty quickly. That pilot test is we're anticipating it will probably take about a year to do, because we'll have to shut it off and let it kind of sit for a few months just to let the concentrations kind of equilibrate. And then we're going to do some monitoring over a few months to to kind of get a good data set to evaluate trends and run some statistics. So that highway garage pilot test in and of itself will take about a year. So I think, feasibly, you're looking at, if that goes well, closure within 2 to 5 years.
And at that point, is there any recommendations for periodic monitoring just to be sure, because we know this area has already been affected, or is it just kind of done?
So I think we would recommend continued monitoring, but it won't be necessary to be done under the MCP. So we
Right.
won't need to provide the results or reports to DEP, but I think it would always be a good idea to continue monitoring in some fashion. Doesn't need to be as extensive as it is now. Maybe a few key locations where we think that, might be good indicators if there were a change in trends. And we can certainly work with the town on that.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I was
Thank you,
here in
Andrea.
2007. I remember this.
It's a long time. Unfortunately, these types of things take forever to kind of, the thing out here is, again, I mentioned it earlier, but it's the bedrock fractures. So there's, aside from that pump and treat at the highway garage, there's really no treatment that's taken place out here. And there's just not a lot of really good ways to get that perchlorate out of those bedrock fractures, unfortunately.
Are you able to measure or know whether that garage treatment system is filtering out much fluoride or not?
Over time, the recovery rate has decreased, because what happens is iron will tend to build up in those fractures and kind of block them, almost the way cholesterol blocks arteries over time. And so they start to lose their recoverability rate. So we have seen decreases in that. The mass being recovered is not significant. So I'm hopeful that this pilot test will demonstrate, that the plume is stable and we don't need that treatment system, but we'll see. But we do have mass, we have mass balance calcs that we've done, and it's treated some. It's not a significant mitigation effort, if you will, just because the pumping rates can't keep up at the top of the hill, and it's migrated so far that we can't, the zone of influence is beyond where the extraction's happening. It's definitely removing some perchlorate.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. If there are no other questions, then Ray, did you have anything to discuss about it at this point?
So I don't see any questions from any of the attendees. Andrea, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate the presentation. At this point, I have the area of special concern down in our local regulations. It was put in from the Board of Health LSP back in 2007. But hearing that some sections have been closed, I think it's important at the next meeting that we look to the area of special concern and look more into the wells that weren't decommissioned properly.
Okay.
And I may need to reach out to town council for that. I don't know if Andrea has anything to add on that.
So well decommissioning, for those locations that are on the disposal site, there are certain guidelines that need to be done. It needs to be done by a licensed well installer. I can send those to you, Ray. They're older, but I think they're still in effect. So they would just need to be done by, a licensed contractor, basically. But other than that, I don't think it would be.
And the town's not responsible to take that on, correct?
I Can't,
Don't
answer
know.
that. I
Okay,
don't know. Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. I'm
Thank
happy
you. That was really helpful and informative.
Yes, very, very informative. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to email them to me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Night.
Good night.
All right, great. So just give me 1 minute here. Okay.
Okay, so we're hoping then, Ray, next month to look at some of the issues related to the area of
Of special concern, yeah,
special
so as part of,
concern.
no, that's okay, so as part of our local well regulations, the Board of Health in my history being here, going into 18 years, I've never heard or seen the Board of Health vote an area of special concern in the community. I know this was, like I said, added a long time ago. So we'll review those sections after tonight's discussion and look at the areas that have been closed and what needs to be done. And do the wells need to be, you know, if they hook up to town water, according to our local regulations, those wells should be abandoned or converted into irrigation wells. And we certainly have paperwork and a process. So we'll come back to you with that.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, if we are done with that discussion, then we're a couple minutes early, so I don't know if we have everyone here for or should we take out of order real quick the request for approval of the Westford Health Department logo?
We do have Mr. Yule and Paul here, so I can make them panelists. Hi, Paul, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, you ready for me?
Ready?
All right.
Okay, well, just a moment. So we'll recognize and welcome Mr. Alphen here to discuss the request for an external grease trap variance at the Village Store Restaurant at 8 West Prescott Street.
Thank you. My name is Paul Alphen. I'm an attorney in Westford, Mass, and I represent the owner of 8 West Prescott Street, which is Chris Yule and 8 West Prescott LLC. And we also have, I think, online, Stephen Rogers, who is the proposed new operator of the Village Store at 8 West Prescott Street. We've been working with your staff, and they've been very, very helpful in helping us determine what needs to be done so that Stephen can reopen the store. The Village Store, as some of you may or may not know, is been in a mainstay of the community. I put in my letter to the board that the Village Store opened in the 1980s. Stephen has corrected me. He believes it was there in the 60s. I'm a newcomer to town. I only came to town in 82, and I lived a few steps away, and it was the place to be in the morning, no question about it. And it's been in existence in that area. I think it's disappeared a couple of times. By and large, it's been there. It's been part of the community, and Stephen now wants to reopen it. He's been cleaning the place up. I think some of the equipment has been replaced. There's no fry-later at the facility. It's a small place. It's only 38 seats, which I think is less than the maximum number of seats that it had in the past. But it's important to the community. And the issue at hand is whether it needs to have an external grease trap. It has an internal grease trap. There is a DEP regulation that calls for an external grease trap of at least 1,000 gallons for all restaurants. But we're hoping one of two things. One, because it has been there for such a long time that either it's a pre-existing non-conforming use that can continue, or that we could obtain a variance. And if we need a variance, the grounds of the variance would be that it has a grease trap, It's not a facility that generates much in the way of grease. We've tried to get some records of past cleaning of the grease trap from the former operators, but paperwork was not their forte. And we don't have much in the way of records, but we have information from the prior operators that when they had the grease trap cleaned by professional people, they found next to nothing. The other test of time we have is that the septic system was, like I said, we recently submitted a Title V report, and the septic system has been there for a while and has been operating properly. So it's not one of those situations where we say, oh, don't worry, you have nothing to worry about, trust us. We have the test of time here that it has operated for a restaurant for a long, long time, and it has operated just fine. If a variance is necessary, we certainly would be happy with any conditions regarding inspection and maintenance of the internal grease trap, so that you could be assured that everything we're telling you is accurate and it isn't having a negative impact on the septic system or the environment. There are some other towns that provide an exception for small restaurants that have less than 75 or 100 seats. Westford doesn't have any exception. So if the change in operator for somehow or other triggered a requirement that the external grease trap be put in, I think there's a reason for a variance because of the small size of the facility. What
Excuse me,
else?
sorry, just a moment. May I ask, do you know those towns with the exception, are any of them towns with septic?
I submitted some of that information to your staff, and I can't say off the top of my head, but I submitted some of those regulations to the staff during the discussions that we had. We also know that there's another restaurant nearby that's been around for a long, long time that has and does not have an external grease trap. So would like to think that there are some provisions for pre-existing non-conforming uses, but at the risk of being redundant, if there is no exception for a pre-existing use, would like to think that with certain conditions of approval, that the internal grease trap would be sufficient for the small size of the facility. I'm also told that there is some concern because the restaurant would be serving breakfast, the most important meal of the day, and there's concern about grease from bacon and sausage, and they would use pre-cooked bacon and sausage to minimize the amount of grease that would be generated. And I think I've said enough. I'd rather have a discussion with the board and see what your concerns are, and see if there's ways we can address your concerns.
Thank you. Ray, did you have, okay, Michelle, would you like to ask a question? And
Oh, I was just going to mention, I think a few years back, didn't we grant a variance to Muffins on Main with restrictions for more frequent checking of the grease traps and determine that we did not need to install an external trap in that case?
That is true.
Yeah, but Muffins on Main is muffins. It's not a
And-
full-scale restaurant.
and very small capacity. It has a smaller capacity, I believe. Do we know what is the allowed capacity at Muffins on Main?
10.
10 or 15 are
Yeah,
there?
It's
10 or
under
15.
15.
So that there, a few differences there, but it is something, yeah, definitely to consider.
Is that the restaurant that you're talking about, Ms. Alphin?
No, there's another one. I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but I've discussed this with your staff, and there is another nearby long-standing restaurant that does not have and probably could not have an external grease trap.
Yeah,
But they've been long in existing.
right.
As has our client's restaurant.
But how
No,
long
it-
has yours
you're-
been closed?
Yeah, it's brand new.
No, what do you mean it's brand new? Who said that?
I did. It's just opening.
No. I ate there in the 80s.
Right, but it's been
Changed
closed.
hands. It's not, it's just because there's been a facility there or a building there does not make it existing. This is a new endeavor.
That's one of the unknowns. Is there a regulation
It's
that says when you change the operator that the regulation applies? And
Yes.
we haven't seen that.
change of ownership. Yeah.
No, it
It's in the
isn't a
food
change
code.
of ownership. There's no change of ownership of the property.
The
It's a
business.
change in operator, a tenant.
Yes,
So what's that regulation? I'm here at work, so I can look it up. What do you got?
it's in the food code.
It's in the,
So it doesn't matter who owns the building, it's the business.
so,
It's a new use of the space.
and not following. New use of the space.
So-
not following.
If Burton's closes and McDonald's goes in there, it doesn't matter who owns the building. It's a change of use, change of ownership, and besides, this was closed too. So when there's a change, then it has to comply to the, what is current in the regulations, both in DEP and the food code.
Thanks, Joanne. I want to make that clear that this isn't just us saying, oh, here there's something going on. When a business changes, a food establishment changes, that triggers the time at which the new code applies. And the current code, to my understanding, Ray and Abby, correct me otherwise, would be that a food establishment has to have an exterior grease trap.
That
Now,
is correct.
I'd love to hear from Ray or Abby as to what their thoughts are and if we have any reasonable way to, what are the problems? What are the challenges with an external grease trap at this location? Why do they not want to put one in?
So from what we can tell from history, and Abby, feel free to chime in, is the septic systems in this area. There are 2 food establishments in this area. And their systems went in before Title V went into act. So external grease traps, were not required back then when their septic systems went in. I couldn't tell you if they were, what the systems were, built for restaurants at the time or whatnot. I know there's residential property at the top, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul. And so that's a little bit of the history. Both areas are very tight. And, this particular area we're speaking about tonight, there's a leach pit out there. People have to park on the street. There's no parking lot. And so, looking and working with Paul, we've asked for any kind of records they had of their internal grease trap. Is it functioning correctly? Has it been cleaned? How often? What are they seeing for grease load? And so that was just something that we extended today to ask if they had any records of that. And Abby, feel free to chime in.
How many years ago was
I
it
don't
open?
have the age in front of me. Abby, do you remember?
The age of the system?
Yep,
No, I don't remember.
it was.
We don't
before
have, like,
94.
We don't have like a septic plan for it. It's so old, so.
But it did pass a recent Title V inspection.
But when was that restaurant last a restaurant?
I don't know.
Do you know that, Paul?
Chris Yule might be better able to testify to that, and if he if he gets his microphone unmuted, and he might be able to tell us.
So it's been closed for a long time is the point. You're trying to reopen it.
I don't know about long time. We need an
Yeah.
answer to this.
I don't think it closed like last winter or fall or something.
It's kind of irrelevant how long it's been closed, whether it's been closed 6 days or 6
I was just curious.
Yeah, it's whatever was there prior is gone and this is new.
Mhm.
The Board of Health regulations aren't my area of expertise. If this was a zoning matter, I'd be all over it. But I could not find in my search of the regulations the trigger they're referring to, and it's probably there because you know what you're talking about. But I just
Okay.
didn't see it.
So our understanding of it is that when there is a change in, how do you define it, Joanne, or somebody, it's not usage, it's not owner, it's
Like the tenant, right?
tenant. then that triggers the time when the new regulations apply. The current regulations require an external grease trap. What can you?
In
Mr.
other
Alford-
words, there's no grandfathering, if that's a term that
Right,
makes sense to people, just because, so let's just say there was a breakfast place there and had been there for 30 years, so that it went into effect prior to all the codes and regulations that are currently in effect. If they shut down and sold to your client and your client wanted to reopen, he would have to come up to the current code, even if he was operating another breakfast place. So
right. So that's
does that make any more sense?
You're probably right. I'm a lawyer, so I like to see regulations, and not having had one, I can't say to my client, yes, this is an absolute. You got to do it because it's in the regs. If I saw and read the regulation, I'm happy to provide that news to clients. I just haven't found it yet. But
okay. Well,
let's say for a minute that's what's required. Then we're here for a variance.
Right. Let's hear. Okay. So if we're here for a variance, can you tell me why you don't want to put an external grease trap in?
I kind of need to interrupt for one
Okay.
second.
Sorry. Go ahead, Joanne.
Madam Chair. If I was looking at this as a discussion before the board, this isn't a variance hearing. And what I saw as paperwork isn't a variance request. So I'm just putting that out there. So if we want to have the discussion, that's fine. But
Okay. Ray, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that there are some participants with questions when you're
Okay.
ready.
Okay. And as we move forward, I'd like to ask my question, which is, first off, based on the assumption that it is a requirement, which is our understanding, why does the client not want to install an external grease trap?
So is he muted? I'm texting him and he's saying that he can't get unmuted. Is there something else that needs to be done on your end?
So
Or does-
he's been promoted to a panelist. I'm clicking ask to unmute. I don't know what's happening on his end.
So
Looks like he's muted himself.
he needs to
Yeah.
find that unmute button at the bottom of the
are you there?
screen and unmute himself. So the reason I understand it is because of the shape of the lot, the topography of the lot, in order to maintain the flow to the septic system, it would be rather difficult to put 1,000-gallon external grease trap in that small space and maintain the septic system and maintain the proper flow to the septic system. And the internal grease trap works just fine.
Okay, well, that's a separate point, but, okay, Abby, or Ray, did either of you have any comments about the feasibility of an external grease trap at this site?
I could see it would be possibly an issue there. Yeah, but I mean, we haven't gone out and explored it, and all we have is like a sketch from a Title V, so it's hard to fully grasp, the constraints of the site from what we have.
Okay. And then before we hear from any other attendees, I just wanted to share with their board members that I received 3 letters. They were either sent to all of us or not. Pretty much, I think they came in today or yesterday. Friday. From a couple of residents who said, this is a business that's been there for a long time. They'd really like to see us support a variance if that's what's needed in order to keep this bit of community and business around the area.
And I just want to say that is what's needed today, because I know, Paul, from what you supplied to us, all the towns were for municipal sewer. So that's really not under our jurisdiction. So from looking, what we have falls under, 310 CMR. So that's Title V, and it's all subsurface sewage disposal for on-site systems. So in that section, 230 of the code is for grease traps externally. So you have to seek the relief. We can't just determine, that you don't need one. It has to be a variance, so.
I see that Chris's mute button may not be still on. Chris, can you speak?
He is unmuted.
He is unmuted. He's calling me.
Okay, well, maybe while we wait to see if Chris is able to join us, I see an attendee with a hand raised.
Well, I have a question
Sue.
though. Yeah, so Joanne had said, are we able to talk about a variance tonight or no? It's not on the agenda?
Right. We can have the discussion. We can't vote on it.
Okay. So we'd have to wait until the next meeting to vote on anything, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Hang on.
so,
I don't know if you could still hear me. This thing is popping in and out.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
hear you.
As
Right.
a variance on the agenda, but the variance itself isn't listed. It doesn't say what they want to.
what the variance would be, got it,
Or
got it,
why they're asking for the variance is, this was a letter
got it.
presented. It's not a variance request.
Thank you,
Okay, so-
Joanne. In Zach's absence, we need you to keep us or keep me on.
Yeah.
On
So
there.
tonight we can have a discussion about this, but no decision will be made. Okay, I
It's-
just want to be clear.
Okay, Paul, you
We
had
may
a,
have Chris. Let's see if this works. Let's try this technology. Chris,
Hello.
hold on.
Hear me?
Can you hear him?
yes.
I'm sorry for this. I don't know what's going wrong with the system. I'm at a different location on a separate machine, so the usual mute and unmute buttons are missing on this machine. I just want to try to correct a few of the understandings about the question of open
Madam
versus
Chair.
closed.
For
Yeah,
the record, can you please say who he is? and the whole
Yes,
name?
I'm sorry,
Chris
Chris.
Sewell.
And-
You you mentioned several times that the place was closed. What actually happened was the prior operator left on short notice, and I called Beaver because I had known for some time that he wanted to operate the facility, and he was my original preferred operator. But he was told by Arnie that he could not operate the facility until a whole long list of work was done that was never really specified. And that's what's eaten up the time. We've been trying to open this place for months, and it's a very important facility to us and to the facility, to Abbott Mill, to the neighborhood. And I'm quite anxious to get this worked out because the facility has run since, my God, the 60s. That's what it's famous for. And the only time it stopped was to do the proper homework to get things running. That said, I would have put a external grease trap in a long time ago if I could have. I think you all know that we have significant technical expertise in handling buildings and systems, and I would never be sitting here if I thought there was a simple way that was affordable that we could put in that trap. As a practical matter, if you've been to the site, you know that all of the plumbing is in the back left-hand corner of the building, and the septic system is immediately behind that corner of the building, which is why the grease trap is where it is. The grease trap accepts effluent from the kitchen sinks, treats it, and then puts it in the building sewer, which puts it then into the septic tank, and from there it goes into the pump tank and is discharged to the leaching field, which is normal Title V activity. What would have to happen if you would put in a grease trap is it would have to go outside in the driveway, which is to the left of the building where the cars are parked. And in that situation, the thing is so big and it's at all the wrong grades, you simply can't get the water to flow from there into the sewage disposal system, or we would have done it years ago. And that's the only reason why we're here is Richie ran that place for 4 years, and he had the grease trap inspected every 6 months, and there was never anything in it. And Reno ran it for 35 years before that, and he never found anything in the grease trap either. And the point there is they're saying it's an inappropriate regulation for such a small operation. We aren't that different from Muffins on Main, and there just is a long history of successful treatment plant operations. And if there had been failures of the septic system, I would not have taken over the property.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that information.
Chris, is that it?
Okay.
All right. Chris,
Yeah,
do you rest?
sorry, I don't know what happened there. The only point was we would have put it in if we could. We don't think we can. And I've run the property since 2016. We've had virtually no incidents or issues of any kind with the septic system. So I don't understand why this national landmark is being effectively closed down when there's been no violations, no complaints, no anything. And we're trying to give you evidence of that. Richie said that he would go to his contractor to try to get his records, and we only found out about that this afternoon. So it takes more than a few hours to get that, if it's even possible. But I'm just trying to change the focus here a little bit. This place has essentially been in continuous operation since the 60s, and it had to stop a few times because Reno, I believe, had some health issues, and then he decided to sell the building. And then it took Richie and I a while to get the new facility set up. And of course, then we had to be a change. I mean, nothing lasts forever. And I don't have a problem with being a subject of a review. I just, this is kind of a sudden shutdown notice to us, and we don't understand why. And we just don't see what the urgency is. That's a public health risk that justifies closing the place down, which is what it feels like to us. Or I would have put in the big grease trap. It's just, if you had a big Dunkin' Donuts or something, or McDonald's, there's no question you need 1,000 gallons of treatment. But in this case, we don't. And we'd be happy to prove that to you if we get our hands on some evidence. But we're not trying to just say, trust me, although it's just.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chris.
Lost him
Appreciate-
again.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we've heard his message and appreciate that.
There's been a lot of work into it, that's all. And I just want to make sure you know that I've been working really hard to keep Forge Village viable. It's having trouble fighting against all the new retail on Route 110. And I don't think it's a good thing for the town of Westford with the Forge Village to have boarded up storefronts. And it doesn't help me either. So I'm just looking for some help on that from you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Should we take our comment from, I believe it's Ellen Hardy?
Ellen, you're unmuted. Are you there?
Thank you very, very much to all of you. Paul has, I am Ellen Hardy, and also already referenced Muffins on, I own that Muffins Maine is in, and Michelle is right, it was 7 years ago that we found ourselves in a very similar situation as with Village. I went to permission to install a kitchen so I could Sulca to open them, and was told, as we've heard, a state regulation requires a 1,000 gallon ground agreed. Whether
Ellen, we're having a hard time hearing you. I don't know if there's a.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Don't know if that will matter. Let me try again.
That seems better.
Thank you. So we came to your board for what was called a variance with just a letter that we sent. And I think the board came up with what we consider to be a very elegant solution to try out a system whereby we could put a 50-gallon grease trap with the limitations to the one trap. And it was a $4,000 to $5,000 investment. Board members quantified as being a lot of muffins to avoid. So what you asked us
I can't hear her.
to have
Yeah.
grease trap, have the trap.
You're cutting out, Ellen. I'm sorry. We're only hearing every couple of
We're
words.
not there. Hold on.
Yeah.
Like calling in Paul's expertise to do that. What can I do?
Right now you're fine. I don't know why it switches. But so, I mean, if I speak, when you came before us, it was a financial burden to install the external grease trap. The board worked with you and decided that an internal grease trap with monitoring and reporting.
She's gone, Stephanie.
Okay,
She might try to get back in.
yeah. Okay, so do any of the board members have any questions or comments on? Okay, Joanne.
I do. I just kind of continue on with what Ellen was saying. We did, because of the nature of the business and the menu is why we did that kind of monitoring and piloting and of the grease trap. That's different. I haven't seen the menu, but I'm just, you know, it's a breakfast place, so I'm going to assume it's normal breakfast foods, not just basically muffins. So there is
Some lunch too, like hamburgers and stuff like that too. So,
it wasn't at the time.
oh no, that's new place too. It's breakfast and like
Oh,
lunch.
breakfast and lunch. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's just a completely different menu. So there's a lot of grease producing menu items there. So it's not comparing apples to apples in this case, at least in my mind. But I was curious about something that Chris had said, and he said that the grease trap has been working for over 30 years. So are you saying there was a grease trap put in there 30 years ago, which I kind of find interesting since there was no call for that 30 years ago, but you know, to say that it was in
Is he talking about the internal?
the internal, yeah, you know, to say that it was in continuous operation, we know that it wasn't. I mean, there were times that it changed hands, there were times that it was closed. It went from a breakfast place and then they served juice or something. Didn't they have, wasn't there a nutritional store in there or something at one point? So it's changed hands and it's changed over. And even as Ellen you know, has said that they were originally required to have the grease trap because that's the code. So it's not that we're I don't know, maybe I'm a little still sensitive from COVID, but you know, we're not trying to shut down a national treasure. We're not trying to board up Forge Village. You know, I wish we wouldn't go down that path. I mean, that's not what I feel, and that's not the case. I'd love to see a place there. We could use more breakfast places. I get it. They're a great neighborhood gathering spot. That's not the point. We have rules and regulations that we need to follow, and you know, that's just what we're trying to do, and to make sure that, you know, we're doing it properly and according to the regulation and treating people fairly. And, you know, we can't compare it either to somebody that's in the neighborhood that's also been in continuous, for truth, operation for well beyond, you know, these regulations. So, I mean, that's just a couple points.
Thanks,
Some of the
Joanne.
things that I've written down.
I see a couple hands raised. We're gonna go to that first. Unless any other board members had any comments right now.
Okay, so the Ellen,
Okay, Ellen, will give you a shot again and
I don't know if any,
still can't hear you, Ellen. I'm sorry. If you wanna. Yeah, but I think
We get to just next.
I think we have a general idea of, well, I don't know, actually, that's not true. We don't know what your point was, but you're muted now, but maybe why don't we try with the other attendee, Ray, that has their hand
yeah,
up?
so Chris had his hand up and he's in twice. So I've hit both to unlock. He's got hands up for both. Let me lower his hand.
Chris, you're unmuted, it looks like. Did you have a comment?
Just trying to answer your question about the 5 years. When I was coming back, Reno said to me that he had operated it for 35 years without any issues, and he did not specify how many of those years he had the grease trap in place. Richie did specify that he had it in place and there was never any issues at all. It was always clean. And I think that the general statements about how some members have said a lot of grease, is not the case. And if we got time where we could talk to the operators in more detail, maybe we would have to adjourn this meeting and come back in person or something. But we're down to the nitty gritty, and the size of that operation just isn't what I think it's being made out to be. And I don't believe when the DEP wrote its regs that they had this kind of application in mind with simply no review or appeal or second considerations. That's not
Well-
their IA procedures, and they don't close down families, and they didn't certainly account for the National Register of Historic Places. I just think there are mitigating factors here that justify it, not least of which is it's never been a problem. And I think that should be taken into consideration here. And the times when it was closed were just an interim period between Richie's operation and Andy, who tried to do the same menu, but he added health foods to it. And it turns out it was not a popular option. People wanted the diner. So he left and handed it back to Beaver, who wants to do exactly what Reno did that made the place so famous.
Okay,
We're all confident that this thing will meet the intent of your laws, which is to not be a public health hazard. We just want a chance to prove that and show it, because baby's being thrown out with the bath, I think, is where we feel. And,
all right, Chris,
it's
I'm
hard
going to
do the
interrupt you there.
details of installing the thing without being on site.
But-
I'll be happy to do that with the board members if you like.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Thank
Okay. Yeah, okay, so I have to say that I agree with Joanne. I'm feeling a little frustrated that this is coming to us in a very adversarial fashion. We would like to figure out a situation and a solution if it's possible, but we need you to work with us. And the fact is that there's a change in operator, which necessitates technically an external grease trap without a variance. A variance might be an option. And if we're going to work with you on that, rather than have you simply tell us that we're trying to shut you down and make you look bad, I'd like to work with you. So let's see if there's an option for that. If it's a possibility, I'd love to hear from Ray and Joanne. You haven't been out to the site, and I'm sorry, not Joanne, Ray and
Abby.
Abby, you haven't had a chance to go out to the site, is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, we have not been asked to go out to the site.
Okay, so we have Chris's word that they've looked into the possibility of an external grease trap, but that it isn't an option.
That's what he's saying.
Oh,
You know,
sorry.
I don't know. We did receive the Title V. We did just receive the minor plan review from the operator last Friday. So we did just receive that. We do see they are replacing equipment out there. And we have seen the menu where it will be breakfast and lunch, hamburgers, things like that. No lunch.
Okay, great. Michelle, you had a question?
Yes, I'm just wondering, could this business work with an engineering firm? And is there an alternative to maybe increasing the size of the internal grease trap or installing a backup and having more frequent monitoring to see if we can somehow work with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I think, like, you know, both of you have said, there's a way to work through this possibly. It's not us. These are state regulations and the federal food, I mean, the food code. Like, we can't take your word for it. Like, we can't make that decision. If it's a variance through DEP, it has to go DP, you know, for approvals for anything that we do. So, you know, let's be clear, and I think I've said it, and I mean it. We're not in the business of trying to shutter places and make you look bad, as you said, or not work with the neighborhood, you know. So, but at the same time, it seems like you know, it's being said that it's our decision to take your word or not, and we're not willing to do it. So, I think there needs to be some work done and to show what can and can't be done out there. If there's a smaller external maybe that still needs to go before variance but is workable, or like Michelle said, a bigger internal, whatever. I've never seen a clean grease trap in my 5 years in public health. Grease traps aren't clean, ever. Even if you don't have, heavily grease laden recipes or, menus. So, and that's concerning almost because it's probably catching nothing. But the septic system is working. It's perfect. That's great. Great, good news. But I think we need to do some work here.
Can I ask, do we have a date that this business was hoping to open?
Ray would probably know better than I because she's been working with the operator for some weeks, correct?
Yeah, we've been working with the operator for actually months. And so my understanding is, I think he was looking to open in April and looking to open in May. But again, they just dropped the packet off from the food consultant last Friday. So typically we have, just so you're aware, we have 30 days to review that. And
I'm sorry, Ray, you said 30 days for what?
to review the plan review application.
So
And we're 1 week in.
have you been holding on to this or did it just arrive to Friday?
It just arrived
arrived
last
on
Friday.
Friday. Okay.
Megan was in FDA training last week,
Okay.
so it has not been reviewed as of yet.
Okay,
We're 1 week in.
so I guess I'm trying to figure out what the best next steps are to suggest. So that we
Ray,
can
did
hopefully
Ray
find a
did
way for
Ray and
this-
Abby, did you guys have some kind of idea in mind working with them on how to help this business out?
So, today as it hit, like I said, today we asked to see any kind of proof, if you will, as Joanna mentioned earlier, that the grease trap is functioning correctly, that it's large enough. We did reach out to our plumbing inspector to see if they had any suggestions, or he too stated that, it would be good to see any kind of history of the grease trap. They typically don't get involved in external grease traps, the plumbing inspector. Trying to research alternatives for the exterior. I have not been able to come up with anything. I know there's all different kinds of grease interceptors. And there are larger internal grease traps. So that is certainly something they could look into.
And the current one is 100 gallon?
But that's
The,
not 1,000. That would be the external. I'm not sure the capacity that they have now. It's older.
okay.
They did send today an invoice showing that a grease company emptied the trap not too long ago in March. But and it says on the invoice everything looks good. But again, I don't know, was it empty when the last operator left? There's not a history as we've asked for, previous variances.
So if they came back next month with a variance request, is that something we could then discuss next month? Because we can't really do anything about it tonight, correct?
Yeah, and I'm
Correct.
really wondering if there's, any way to help this move forward faster so that it doesn't end up delaying their ability to open. Mr. Alphen, you have a question?
Yeah, there was some discussion about whether the staff has visited the site. Is there some benefit to have them visit the site to see the existing conditions? Is that something we should expedite?
Ray and Abby?
I mean, we're certainly happy to come out to the site. I'm not an engineer. I don't know if a external grease trap would fit out there. My opinion would be to certainly do a little research to see, again, is there, if the current grease trap is older, I'm not saying it's not functioning properly, but either some proof that it's functioning, maybe a larger one could go in there that maybe, again, these are all maybes. I don't know if the board would be comfortable with this. And, we could certainly set conditions that we would, that we do have ready to go if needed or requested.
Yeah, so I think that it would be really helpful if you, when we gave our previous variance, there were reasons. One was a financial reason, as well as a understanding that the amount of grease at Muffins on Main would be very small. So I guess it would be helpful for us, if you come for a variance, to let us know why. Specifically, is it not possible or feasible to install that external grease trap, which is what Chris said, but it'd be good to hear that officially. And or, you know, if it's a financial thing, then an explanation of that and why and how it would be too much of a financial strain on the small business to install an external grease trap, which is an expensive thing. Those were things that Ellen discussed with us when she came for Muffins on Main's variance. And then I think it's important for us to understand, yeah, the functionality of the current grease trap, or if there is a better proposal for a larger and more modern grease trap to be installed. Ray and Abby, did you have any other suggestions? And then, you know, I think we would want probably to go forward with some pretty serious close monitoring of that for at least the first year, and then a discussion for the variance as to whether it would continue that way. Other board members, how do you feel about those thoughts? Or
Well, for me,
Yeah.
I think it is going to be important for them to get an engineer, you know, some kind of an engineering firm, or and do some site work out there. We can't, that isn't staff's responsibility. They don't have the expertise for that, nor the time. I mean, this is part of their business plan. This is part of what they, you know, the regulations that they have to comply with. And just like we would do for a septic or anything else, if somebody was coming in for a variance for a septic system, they come with their engineer and they explain to us the nature of the lot and, you know, the issues involved, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And then, you know, we make a good faith decision. It's going to be based on manifest injustice or equal environmental protection. So that's what we have to base it on. So I think that's what I would like to see is, you know, a lot more data and proof, if you will, and not that it's been working for 30 years, because we know things change. We know not everything works for you know, forever.
any other comments from board members? Okay, so I don't know, Mr. Alphen, if you have any questions or if that is clearer.
Is there I gather there's a variance application form floating around someplace that I haven't found.
Yes, I
If you-
have sent it to you twice, but I will send it
Oh.
again.
Oh,
It's
okay.
okay.
Thank you. No, you don't have to send it
It's a
again. if you
lot of
already sent it
emails
to me.
back and
No,
forth.
I sort of know how email works. I'll figure that out. So, I'll fill that out. I'll discuss all these things with my client. I hear what you're saying. I hear that you're not terrible people trying to shut down Forge Village. That we'll see if we can gather that evidence. We'll see what's out there, and we'll submit whatever we can.
We really, you know, if you can come to us with a good proposal and, you know, a backed reasoning behind the proposal, we'd love to work with you on that. We don't want, that's, you know, that would be the goal, is to, you know, look at what the situation is with some facts behind it and come up with the best possible solution.
And so did we, because I didn't submit a formal application, what happens to the process? Is there a public hearing that we have to start over? What about timing for visiting you again? How much time do we need?
Ray, do you know when that has to be submitted?
So I would say that you'd want to submit that by June 5th. The next meeting is June 12th.
June 12th, the next meeting.
It's June 12th, so June 5th, I would say you'd want to have everything in so we have time to review it.
Okay.
But we're happy to, work with you through this process and, we can discuss things so that we're all on the same page as much as possible.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. No, I understand the pickle you're in, and we'll do the best we can.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, we hope we're able to make this work out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Give me 1 minute.
Okay.
Make sure everyone's removed. Sorry, just handling the background here. All set.
Okay, so our next agenda item then was the Westford Health Department logo.
Yeah, so it's part of our, we're in the beginning stages of FAB accreditation, our public health accreditation for our health department. We are also working with our consultant, BME Strategies, who is our accreditation coordinator. And so one of the first items is your logo for your health department. It kind of sets the tone for your department and how you represent yourself. So this would need to be on our letterhead, and we would put it with the town seal as, a partnership, if you will. But this is what we have been working on. Last month when I presented, Joanne did bring up a question about, changing the colors of the symbol. And so we did do that research. She was correct, and we are unable to change it to the Westford Academy colors. And so this would be the standard. You had in your packet what it would look like if it was in color, which is here, and then also a grayscale, a black and white. So this would be our choice. So this is the natural symbol for public health, and we have attached our health department to it. So we are required to make sure that the board members approve the logo.
Okay, thanks.
I
Ray.
like the colored one. So is it between the colored one and the black and white? Is that the?
No, it would be this one. The grayscale would just be what it looks like when it's in black and white.
Oh, I gotcha. That looks good.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah.
Great.
Looks
I
good.
did check too with the town manager's office. And we were just required to let the select board know. So we have fulfilled all requirements.
And do we need to vote to approve it then?
It would be great if you could vote.
Okay, well,
Thank
I will
you.
make a motion to approve the Westford Health Department logo. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, wait, who was that?
Joanne.
Joanne beat me.
Joanne, okay.
You beat me last time, Michelle.
Joanne seconds. If there's no other discussion, all in favor, Stephanie, aye, Michelle,
Aye.
Megan,
Hi.
Joanne,
Aye.
and Sue.
I
Great, that motion passes unanimously. Good
I had
job.
to plug my computer back in, so I had to move. Oh, okay.
Okay, then our next item on the agenda is the discussion of updates of the animal regulations. If we can start by discussing the changes, I guess. Well, Abby, did you, or Ray, did either of you have things you wanted to begin with, or?
Can you see my screen? I just want to check.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm running two screens here.
it's all green instead of red.
Yes, it is strange how track chairs work, but so I think this is the second or third month we've brought this to you. Is like just a little quick history, our animal regulations, which included piggery and stables, are back from 1972, was the last time they were updated. So in dire need, things like, we wanted to make sure we included the wetland requirements. We have some paddocks that run right through streams and things like that. So really just an update, not to make them more complicated for folks, but just to update them. We did have 4 meetings. Our staff, Abby has worked really hard on these with Sam and myself, and have met. We've looked at numerous, and I mean numerous, over 25 different local regulations for animals. When it came to stables and piggeries, as well as recently chickens. And so we took the best of the best we could out of all of them, with, making sure we are looking at the sanitation. When we go out to a site, we're looking at how they store their feed, their manure is what we're looking at to make sure they have food and water. If we notice something is not right with their health, we notify our animal officer. We work closely with our animal officer team, and anything that we see in the field, like I said, that has to do with the health of the animal, we work with them. We make sure that, they check, immunizations, things of that nature. They fill out the Mass General Law barn book with all of the facilities, the stables and piggeries, the registered with the health department. So we're hoping tonight to just, it may have to be continued, we understand, but we would at least like to go through. And if you want to go through, or if you've already reviewed it and you have questions, we'd be happy to do whatever you want.
Okay. Did any board members have any questions that they noted or wanted to bring up?
No, I was really grateful for the letter that you sent though, Ray, from the inspector. That was very helpful.
Great,
About-
yeah, we
yeah.
did meet with animal control, we've met with our conservation agent. We wanted to make sure we've also talked to zoning officer, which is our building commissioner. For piggeries, you have to have 10 or more pigs before you're flagged to have a permit here in Westford. For stables, it doesn't matter if you have 1 or you have 50. You do have to follow these and get permitted, and those inspections take place every year annually. Just to let you know that. And, reaching out with animal control, we met with her twice just when we were planning these, and she suggested she wanted to give a letter just so that you could all see how she felt and, what her history is with working with us.
I thought that was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Do any of the board members feel we need to go through it? Joanne?
I just, a couple questions.
Yeah.
On the piggery part, now that Zach's gone, I'm probably the only one, maybe Michelle, who lived through piggery issues. And I wanted to ask about, and I lost my spot. Because it's not mentioned in here specifically as windrows or shoot. Well, it's because it talks about where you're going to place the refuse, and the issue that we ran into was they would put them in windrows and let it dry and such, and then the barn broke. And I don't see anything regarding that. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I thought I had it right here in front of me. And I didn't know if it wasn't anything that anybody else had seen or you had seen in anybody else's regulation or not.
We didn't, and so we can certainly see if we can research outside the state to see if anyone requires, for instance, a lined pond or something to that effect.
Well, yeah, in here it does say that the lagoons have to be lined. And I do remember, and I don't know, remember if it ever came to fruition, but part of the lagoon issue that we had when we were doing walks was that it wasn't covered at all, so that every time that there was some kind of weather destabilization, it would whether it was raining or snowing or whatever, wind, it would agitate the lagoon, causing odor. So that we were trying to, and that was part of the issue with the neighborhood as well. So we were trying to mitigate that in certain ways. And there are out in the Midwest where they have the, the central part of the country where they have these gigantic piggeries, where they do have covers over the lagoons. And but I really don't no, whatever came, I can't remember. It was however many years ago, whatever came of that.
Well, sorry, you were breaking up on my end, but we can certainly, no, that's okay. We can certainly research. We did put in the lining, but we can research a cover. Because this does have to go in, public hearing. So if, we're able to iron things out tonight, we would set that up for next month, but we would get a draft, like I said, we can research the cover.
Yeah, it
and
wasn't.
See if that affects the, how everything burns off or oxygenates, if you will, or like you said, if weather agitates, it stirs the pot, if you will.
It was sort of, and there was some pushback. That's why I don't remember what came of it. Obviously it would just be, like a slanted roof cover over the lagoon, open on all sides, so you have the aeration and, that kind of stuff. But it was to prevent, agitating the liquid, causing odor, basically, and then adding liquid to it as well, because we wanted them to pump it more often and put it out into the windrows. But anyway, that was one thing. So thank you for looking into that. The other thing was I was curious on the acreage for the stables, because I didn't know where or how you came up with the 3/4 of an acre, and then what was it, 20,000 square feet after that or something?
Yeah, so
Seems
Abby, I don't know. If
small. Most times I've seen an acre, or 2 acres to start, 1 acre, after 5 or something like that. So
we did.
Three-quarters was our existing. That's why it's in black there. So that's what we
Oh,
had
okay.
originally.
Okay.
So 3/4, and then it seemed like a common, I would say most commonly with what we saw, 20,000 square feet per additional horse. So we stuck with what we had originally and then added requirements for additional, because originally we just had 3/4 of an acre and you could have like 500 horses if you wanted. That's why we were trying to limit, subsequent animals. with
And
acreage.
is that you said that's a common,
That's what a lot, I would say more. I mean, some towns had different amounts. Some had 10, some thousand, some had, 40,000, some had 20, but it looked like 20 was kind of the most frequently encountered one that we saw.
All right. Good. I'm just saying I haven't seen that. It's usually 2 acres and then an acre thereafter kind of thing. Or you start with an acre and an acre thereafter. Ours is
so
2.
this is generous.
Huh?
So this is being generous.
Yeah, as Abby said, it's always been 3/4, and then, you go out and they would literally just have 3/4 and they'd have 6 horses out there.
Yeah, that's awful.
And so you have to have that now just to have one, and then for each additional. So looking at it all, it was averaged for 20,000.
Okay, but did you check with animal control or with any stables or anything like that to make sure that that is indeed adequate?
Yes, so we did reach out to, forgive me, I can't think of the name of the farm on Powers Road. I reached out. Yes,
Yeah.
and we have reached out, like I said, through this whole process with animal control.
Yep.
I think they're just excited to see there'll be more room.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For future stables.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't know where the number came from because I'd never seen it like that. Cool. Okay.
Anything else that anybody had questions about?
One thing I just wanted to add too is we certainly understand too, the formatting is completely off. So it will be cleaned up it's a hot mess right now, as you can see with the formatting. So we will clean that up for public hearing.
And
but
so
we
then-
didn't have a section, for instance, on burial diseased animals. We want to make sure we're protecting environmental health, our water. And I noticed that the board
You got the
did ask-
correction there of disposed, off of, okay, never mind.
Even the paddock, we didn't have, any requirements before. We had no wetland setbacks. So those will all have been added.
And
You
Yeah.
guys did a
And-
lot of work. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you did zoning too, right? Building. So yeah, I thought you said there was a typo somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Incomplete sentence somewhere, and but I can't find it.
So you added this section here. Okay, so the chickens section. This is
Mhm.
all new.
They ate me and the chickens.
I thought the animal control handled it well. You don't want to go down that.
Registry route.
Yeah, yeah.
So what did we,
So for the chickens, at the last meeting, we were advised to consider putting in a chicken registry for folks that own chickens here in the community. We did express, our history of complaints. We did express how we handle issues with things like roosters and other chickens, but we were advised to continue with this registry. So we put those sections in. It would take some time just to have an application made for the online registration. And we were asked to add some, just an additional sentence, which you can see here in red, regarding animal noise, regarding birds and fowl.
so a couple thoughts I had, talking to Ray earlier, we were discussing this a little bit, and I'd read the letter that kind of indicated they didn't think the registry was necessary, and I didn't. So Chelmsford, I pulled up the towns that had chicken things. Most of them didn't appear to have registries.
So Chelmsford has a inspectional program. They actually require, if you have chickens in Chelmsford, that regardless of how many, is my understanding, you are required to pull a permit and pay for a permit, and they conduct those inspections. I will say that Westford doesn't have the capacity to inspect. When I spoke to the Chelmsford Health Director, they conduct over 48 chicken inspections per year, and they do have additional health agent help to do that.
I'm gonna have to say, of all the towns you looked at, you didn't look at mine. And it's in areas that you're well beyond Westford borders, and we do have regulations, and 5 and above, you have to have a permit.
Right. So what I was looking at, and I was curious just a little bit, I looked at the towns, out closer. Well, so Air.
Some of them are pretty far away, so.
And.
But it's all over the map.
And Carlisle just kind of rolled it in with the rest, it seemed, if I'm.
Yeah, so for us, it wasn't anything, it was random. You put in Google search, chicken regulations or chickens for health departments, and these are the communities that come up. And so, for us, it's about Westford and what's comparable to Westford.
Right.
It's nothing personal what communities we pictured in.
We have a lot of the Neshoba towns too, because those were easy to gather all at once. You call 1 or 2 of the agents and they do like 10 towns. So it's sort of an easy compilation.
Oh, Megan. Sorry, Megan, you just moved. Megan, what is your question or comment?
Yeah, no. So I realized there's a ton of work that's gone into this. It just seems like with animal control and from what Ray and Abby have said is that it's not currently a problem. If it is in a year, can we just addend this?
It has to go through another public
Right.
hearing.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't have to wait another 30
Well,
years, right?
No, and it's an existing regulation, so it doesn't have to go before a public hearing.
Okay, so my thing with that Ray said that when we were talking, and I wasn't here last month, so I wasn't part of that discussion, but from the previous month when we were discussing, one of the main concerns and reasons for the registry was so that if there were problems, we'd have a way to reach people. But it sounds like there's not a lot of expectation that a registry would be comprehensive. And what Ray suggested, and I thought this was good, was that maybe if there were really an issue with avian flu or something like that, we could do a reverse 911, which would reach everyone, and that is probably a more effective measure than trying to use the time and energy for a registry that would not be really comprehensive. I don't know what other board members think about that.
I think that's a great idea, Stephanie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So, I mean, I guess I can't see that anymore. Um, so I personally think maybe we don't need that first. I would move to strike that first thing. I don't know what the thoughts are about the nuisance part of the chicken thing, if that's necessary as a second thing, or if it's rolled into the rest of our regulations. Do we have that coverage generally, or do we need to call that out specific to poultry?
Well, I think it's up to you again with the registration program. We're happy to enforce whatever you'd like for all of you. But I think keeping 20330, the section we put in green, if you want to continue to add the section in red, that's fine. But I think that would be helpful. It does add some teeth, as Joanne had mentioned earlier, I think last month, about noise. But we do use Mass General Law, Chapter 111. But this would just kind of enforce it. And certainly for us, I just want to add that, we do have quite a bit of information and educational campaign to kind of let people know, how to keep their backyard blocked and coop clean and things like that, and address noise. So I just wanted you to know we would also put out an educational campaign.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
and
got a
that's
mosquito over here, sorry.
right. That's what the animal control woman had said too, and I like that. That was her suggestion, that we'd be better off doing education promotion than changing regulations, or I don't know. I like I said, reading her, and she's been doing this for years, and even about the nuisance, she said in all the years she's been doing it, there's just been 2 complaints of roosters and it was easily taken care of or something like that, so.
I think that, the fact that Westford's a right to farm community, we need to be respectful of that. And she also mentioned that roosters had a benefit to something. It was a little beyond my farm.
Oh,
knowledge.
procreating, isn't it? I mean,
Is that what it was? I didn't get
Yeah.
that.
Again, you only need the rooster if you want chicks.
Well, they
Most
protect
people
the flock
don't.
too, sometimes.
That's what it was. She said protect the flock.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
they do the alarm calls and watch and everything, so.
Okay.
I mean, I have lived around roosters and
Yeah.
understand the concerns there.
Yeah, I honestly can't speak to that. That's what she was informing us.
I had a rooster in my neighborhood. I got to tell you, I did.
I don't know.
And I don't know. It wasn't that big a deal, but
Well, the registry was the compromise, so that's, okay, we'll give. My question then is on nuisances, do you want to keep it specific then to chickens, or just the nuisances in general? You're gonna put it in, you're gonna take chickens out of that section and just call this nuisances?
Yeah,
Because
that's what
that's
I
a
was
good
wondering.
idea. Yeah.
If
this isn't, I know it's, the animal regulations, it really isn't. You're just talking about 2 or 3, or if you take chickens out 2, it's really just horses and pigs. There's no mention of really anything else, and there's all kinds of animals.
Yeah, I wondered about that. A lot of the other towns.
It's not really an animal regulation. It's a pig regulation and a horse regulation.
A lot of the other towns listed quite a few animals and just called it an animal regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And that, if we did something like that, I don't know, then the nuisance, does that help with the nuisance thing, or is that? Because we never know when something unexpected becomes an issue.
Yeah, I guess, I agree about the nuisance for animals. My only hesitation is,
I can't
the
read it
police-
right now.
the police department goes out for a dog that barks, and we just don't have the capacity to go every time
No,
someone
I
complains
know.
about
Yeah.
a dog or other animals, and at what
Yeah.
point do we inspect goats or llamas,
Right.
cows, cattle.
Gosh.
So that's where the challenge comes in. We're happy
Mm.
again to add more animals if you want us to,
No.
but we haven't
No.
had a history of concern. Not to say we won't someday, but that's the truth.
I would suggest you not add more work to your office that you can't afford to regulate.
Yeah.
I just feel like we've spent so much time talking about this regulation.
So if, you know, a suggestion, if you're comfortable with it, or we can come, like I said, we can come back with a new language, but if we kept Article 3 chickens and we keep 20330 and keep nuisance in under chickens for the purposes of the rooster complaints and, you know, the noise or, you know, the jumping of chickens into someone else's yard, we could still go out to those calls and work with animal control.
The red part then seems to me like what you're saying is it gets outside of what we would, because is the portion in, oh, well, no, it's under chickens, so it's specific to that.
Yeah, so the crowing is the cockadoodle doing and the
Yeah.
screeching, and I know, you know, this was something pulled from the Lexington animal regulation.
Okay, so how do board members feel about keeping all of the nuisances portion as is currently written?
Are we getting rid of the registration for the chickens or are we keeping that?
Should we? I thought we were getting rid of that.
Yeah, I like the reverse 911 call.
I like
instead of
that too.
The registration.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, so we're pulling 20329, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then do you want to leave 20330 with the green section with, you know, the red and green, or not at all?
I would get rid of it. That whole section.
Oh, but I thought Ray said she thought it would be helpful.
I thought you said it would be cause more issues if people are calling you about their barking dogs.
No, so we, you know, Abby and I, you know, our office discussed this green section,
Oh, okay.
you know, that we would keep it under chickens and
Okay.
that,
So it's under chickens, it's
So
not
kind
barking
of-
dogs.
yeah, to kind of reassure you all that, you know, if there is a complaint about noise, we'll work with animal control.
Got it.
We'll have
Okay.
a section that has teeth to it, if God forbid they do have to come in front of you, because they have a problem with a rooster or.
So under
Or-
chickens, you're just gonna get rid of 203-29, but leave 20330?
Mhm.
Okay. It's fine.
So if there is an issue, Ray, then obviously we don't pull their permit because the horses and, you know, like pigs have a permit to pull, so this would just come in front of the board like a nuisance complaint. Is that okay?
Correct.
And the portion in red, are you guys comfortable with that, or do you think that's problematic?
Abby, do you have an opinion on it?
I think it could possibly become problematic, possibly. I mean, it's just kind of, but at the same time, it's just kind of, you know, and it,
How could it become
Explanation too.
problematic? Just explain that to me.
like just kind of continuation of the nuisance bylaw, just more, you know.
Well, so one
in
thing I
depth,
see is that
so-
it says any animal, and we have this under
Yeah.
chickens.
Chickens.
So
I just don't know.
Well,
any
it's a-
fowl.
Change that then maybe to, well, it says any bird or fowl.
Yeah.
Crowing,
right, because
yeah, any animal, yeah, that could be.
111 is after the fact. That was my point. And it's, if they say we're not getting rid of it, then you have a fight on your hands. In this case, it's saying you can't have this type of animal. It gives you more teeth should it become an issue. You're not supposed to have an animal that disturbs the peace.
Okay, is that, so you don't think that having it say any animal there is an issue?
Well, not if you keep it under chickens, you can't put any animal because it's
Right.
specifically about, and it wouldn't be chickens because it's bird and fowl. That's why I'm saying it should just be under nuisance. But
Yeah, under,
maybe it
right.
needs,
Or in
maybe
this section, instead
this,
of chickens, maybe it has to be fowl or poultry or,
Yeah.
Okay, we can change the language around.
just, yeah, wordsmith it a little bit so that it,
Yeah, keeping the section, but just changing it to clarify that it's not like everyone's animal now.
right.
Yeah,
Okay, we're pretty late, so. is that
yes, please.
enough for us to move
Yes.
on?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Let's definitely.
All right,
Cruise
so
through
we'll
the
continue
remainder.
that to next meeting, the discussion. And hope for a vote, or would you like a public hearing? It's not
No.
required. Okay,
No
No.
public hearing.
let's,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
okay.
Um,
All right, let me stop sharing here.
then our next agenda item is updates on Centers for Disease Control and Prevention National Health Nutrition Survey. being
Yeah,
Oh,
conducted.
yeah.
I just wanted to give you an update.
I didn't get a call yet.
Oh, we got an email. Did you get the email?
No.
Yeah, so anyone that volunteered, we gave them a list. Gail and I got emails that we were chosen. With, just more information to come. So I can check with them to see if they had so many people, they picked people out of a hat. I don't know how that works, but
Okay.
anyhow, so we did meet with them again last week, and letters have gone out. We put together a whole package to go on our webpage to let the public know. The letters will go out to the residents. It is the Providence Road, Crown Road area of Westford.
That's right where I am.
And so that is the location. So we're just waiting on the map specifically of the area, and so that we can share that with our police department. I did let the town manager know, police and fire, so if they get called to dispatch, concerned, because the first week in June is when they have all the boots on the ground. So all of their employees that do the home surveys will be in their neighborhoods. So they'll be notified 4 times by mail, and then they will be, if they're chosen, to answer their survey, will be given a link for a survey. Then what happens is they are notified if they qualify for the physical exam. So you've seen the measurements that they check for. And so we just wanted to let residents know that's coming. I did check to see how long it would take to get the results. And so we wouldn't receive that till the end of 24. Those results would come only as Middlesex County and not specific to Westford.
It's quite a while. Okay, great.
Yep.
Then our next agenda item is new business. You have a couple items there.
So I just want to let you know, as part of our, we have a hoarding grant that is regional with 17 communities. And so as part of that, we were required to give a training, which Nicole, the community health and wellness coordinator, myself, gave to our police department at roll call over 2 days, 7 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, just to go over what hoarding is, the mental illness portion. We provided them with not only a PowerPoint, but went over what are the requirements here in Westford for calls in the weekends, evenings, what the laws and rules are for that, and how we can give services and resources to the residents that need assistance. So that is pretty much that, unless you have any questions.
No, that's good.
And Alexander Walters, she is a Framingham State University junior student, and she is studying community and public health nutrition. So she starts with us May 22nd, and she'll be with us 2 days a week, working here in the health department, and we're going to squeeze her in. And, so she'll be working on some projects. And so typically all of our interns, they will intern and shadow with everyone here in the health department. So she'll go with Gail, our public health nurse, community health. Yeah. So I just wanted to let you know in case you see a strange face or get
What-
emails.
What is her name again?
Her name is Allie, but her full name is Alexander Walters. And she's
Oh, I
very
know her.
excited. Oh,
I
you
know
do?
Ellie Walters. I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she is very excited. We're excited to have her. We love summer interns because they get the best opportunities to camps and pools and all kinds of fun things in the field. So we're really hoping it's a win-win on both sides.
Good. That's awesome.
That's great. And then our next agenda item is old business.
So just an update on our Mental Health Awareness Month, which is the month of May. We had our event on May 1st. We did have, we were allowed to have flags and banners out there for the first week of May. We want to thank Senator John Cronin, who came to speak, which was pretty moving, and Congressman Laurie Trahan sent her folks, and we want to thank you, the board members and the residents for coming. We had a table and gave out all kinds of resources and information. So we
You did a great
continue-
job. It was good. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody worked really hard, the staff. So
really good.
and we appreciate Nicole downstairs helping us out. So yeah, lots of events this month and resources. If any resident who just wants to visit our webpage or Facebook page, we do have lots of resources up for that.
That's awesome.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
The ARPA requests.
The ARPA request, like, you know, just keeps coming back. I just wanted to let you know that, so tomorrow, the select board, we've been told that it's gonna make some decisions on some of the requests. We do have two up. One is our community health assessment was dropped from 200,000 to 75,000, working with our consultant. The other one is brand new. So we did work with the water department and our accounting department about putting in a request for residents for PFAS testing for private drinking water wells. So we are requesting $20,000 for 50 homes. I've spoken with the lab to see how that would work with, you know, invoicing and things like that. So the hope is to offset and maybe get an idea of where the PFAS pool is in the community. See if that
Is
would,
that
you
like
know,
a first come, first serve people?
it would be,
Asking,
yeah. And our assumption would be as soon as we open that, if again, if approved, that would fill right away.
Bill, yeah.
Because it's $400 for the test.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll see. So those are our ARPA requests, and so I'll be at the select board meeting tomorrow night.
Great. Hopefully.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all your work there, Ray. And then an MRC training day was.
So I just wanted to bring it up because Nancy works so hard. Nancy Burns is our MRC coordinator. We have an annual training day for our MRC volunteers. So over 100 people showed. We had 28 Middlesex students, nursing students that attended as well. And I have to say, it was my first training day attendance. It was phenomenal.
Oh,
The
good.
speakers were fantastic, and the sessions were great. And so I actually learned a lot. And so I really appreciate all her hard work and all the volunteers that put that together and that attended, and for all their hard work that they do year round for us. So I just wanted to make sure I give a shout out to Nancy and to all our MRC volunteers.
That's great.
Can I say
So,
something?
Yes.
Speaking of Nancy, just another shout out to her. I don't know if anybody's even left, for a couple things. One, she gave two presentations at NACCHO, 2 weeks ago. Oh my God, when was it? We were in Atlanta. And I did one on an MRC project, and she did two that I attended. Fabulous. She holds the room like nobody else. So I just wanted to let you know that
That's awesome.
she did great. And this, this is a national conference, so
Wow.
kudos to her. But she's also been asked to work on a regional training day as well, since she has done such a fabulous job with this training day in this region. It has been noticed and recognized. So
That's awesome.
she is amazing. She's like, everybody looks up to her in the MRC world.
That's
We
great.
can't
great.
retire.
You're
We
lucky to
can't
have
let her
that.
retire. No retirement.
No, retired. No.
No, we're very thankful and lucky to have her here.
Not
Okay.
allowed.
And that's it on our end.
Okay, there's nothing else?
I'll make a
then-
motion.
Motion
I'll
made.
second.
Michelle seconds. All in favor, Stephanie, aye. Michelle,
Aye.
Joanne. Is a yes, Sue
Aye.
and Megan.
Hi.
Sorry, I just follow where my screen
It's
goes.
all women. All women. Is this the
Megan,
first time in a
we don't,
long?
we
the
don't
first
normally go
time.
this late for
No.
your first
Yeah.
meeting. This is unusual.
Your first meeting, Megan. There you go.
They're testing her.
Sometimes
We're
we agree
testing
and
her.
sometimes we don't, but we always We, it's all
right.
good. It's all
It's all
good.
good.
Pray
It's
and
all
happy.
good. All right. All
Okay.
right.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody. Good night. Night.
Good night.
For all your hard work.
Thank you.